Right, let's look at some business news. And of course, there is widespread speculation that South Africa will move from lockdown level 3 to 2 in coming days. President Cyril Ramaphosa met with the National Coronavirus Command Council and the President's Coordinating Council earlier this week. These sorts of meetings usually precede him addressing the nation. Well, Business Leadership South Africa has been saying that a shift to lockdown level 2 is needed quickly to help the economy heal. To discuss, we're joined by the President of Business Leadership South Africa, Busi Mavuso. Ms. Mavuso, thank you for being with us. So you're welcoming that the family meeting will probably come soon, and I guess wishing it had come sooner.
Francis, good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me. So I think let's agree that level 2 is the next logical phase that we should be moving to as a country, as an economy. I think when you look at the number of infections, let's all agree that they are actually declining, which is a good thing. I think we had the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Health last week, indicate as such, and is happy about the trajectory that the numbers are actually taking. I think the number of vaccines that have been administered as well, I think at some point we reached a record high of about 240,000 vaccines administered in one day. Yes, we are not at the level where we'd like to be in terms of having more people being vaccinated, but if we continue to close down the economy any further, I think it will further undermine our economic recovery efforts, Francis. I think we would have seen the manufacturing numbers that came out today, very devastating. I think those actually show the effects of the riots that we experienced as a country in July. We saw the GDP numbers that actually came out, I think, about 2 days ago. Yes, the economy might have grown about 1.2% for this second quarter. But if you look at where we are, as an economy, we are still lesser or smaller than what we were pre-COVID, so it therefore means that the effect and the devastation of COVID, is still very much with us, and we still have not been able, as a country and as an economy, to actually move beyond that. Yeah. And I think we all saw the unemployment numbers, Francis. They are also just as depressing. So it is the next logical move, really.
Yeah. However, how much of this is due to the lockdown? You say it's time to get the economy back to work, but isn't most industry functioning normally, except, of course, tourism? But that's not all linked to the restrictions. It's also about foreigners coming in. It hasn't seemed that hard for business, although, of course, there are these other things going on, looting, like you say, policy uncertainty, many issues.
So I think we are departing from the premise that let's do everything that we can in our power as an economy and as a country to ensure that we actually open up economic activity as much as possible. So if you're sitting in an environment where certain industries, and certain sectors are still operating in a limited capacity, it actually therefore doesn't assist us from an economic standpoint. If we are saying that we would like to see more people, being employed, if we're saying that we'd like to see our GDP perform better, if we're saying that we'd like to see more businesses, do better, then it makes sense that we actually restore all aspects of our economy, back to full economic activity, as it were, and I think the issue that we're raising around the riots that happened around July, that has further exacerbated issues. So businesses need to be put in a position where they can actually operationally, do as much as possible or get back to normalcy as much as possible. I don't know if you saw the other day, the ShopRite CEO was talking about the fact that they still have not reopened 83, stores, and that is for a big, retail chain like ShopRite. So you can imagine what the devastation is for other small businesses. So therefore, further closing of the economy and of certain industries, therefore doesn't assist, the acceleration, and doesn't assist, other industries and other businesses to actually get to the level where they actually need to be. So unemployment is a factor that we need to consider. So unemployment can therefore not be achieved, though we are not going to be able to get over the 45% unemployment in terms of the expanded definition when a lot of businesses are still actually operating in a limited capacity. Yeah. So it is from that perspective. Alcohol industry, for instance, is still limited in terms of how they are operating. A lot of restaurants, would have shut down precisely because of the fact that they are not in a position to sell alcohol. We had the Restaurant Association come out and say that they are closing 1,000 restaurants. So the limitations that have actually been put on businesses are making it difficult for businesses to actually come up with a viable and a strong business case of why they need to continue to operate. Hence why we are calling for full economic activity, in as far as that is possible.
Ms. Mavuso, you are talking as if you wish that there will be no more lockdowns in future as well. And of course, that also depends on the course of COVID-19 and our vaccination rates. So finally, I'd also like to ask you to weigh in on a big debate that's happening globally, and we're having it on the show tonight. Do you think businesses should be allowed to fire people for not agreeing to be vaccinated?
No, I think that is going to be done on a case-by-case basis. And I think businesses and CEOs and companies are actually going to follow their own individual protocols. And as far as that is concerned, I think we've already seen the CEO of Discovery, Adrian Bo, come out and say that it is mandatory for all employees of Discovery to actually be vaccinated. And I don't know what the consequences are going to be if people are not vaccinated. I know a few CEOs that I've spoken to are actually saying that if employees are going to choose to not be vaccinated, then they are going to be requested to actually produce a COVID test on a weekly basis, a test which they'll have to carry at their own cost. So I think it's a balance that we actually need to strike, and it is a function of if we already have countries like the UK, which are sitting at 80% vaccinations and have already reached herd immunity. And we have seen that the UK has actually is now in full swing. I mean, if you're looking at the entertainment industry and all aspects, of their economy are actually operating in full mode, as it were. You look at their stadiums, they are already full. Yes, there's actually a rise in infections, but when you're looking at what's happening, with their hospitalization and with their death rates, you will see that those are actually minimal. And that is the advantage, of having or of achieving herd immunity, of having as much people as possible being vaccinated, and we are actually in a worse off position, as South Africa, because we've got a seriously compromised, hospital system, so we are not in a position to actually take in, all these cases that we are currently sitting with, and people are actually dying, in emergency rooms, right. and it is for that reason that vaccinations make sense, Francis.
All right, thank you. We appreciate your time tonight. President of Business Leadership South Africa, Busi Mavuso.